Hereabouts a crowd came pouring to the banks, women and men, noble-minded heroes separated now from their living flesh, young boys, unmarried girls, and sons cremated before their father's eyes. Continuous the streaming leaves nipped off by first frost in the autumn woods, or flocks of birds blown inland from the stormy ocean, when the year turns cold and drives them to migrate to countries in the sun. There they stood, those souls, begging to be the first allowed across, stretching out arms and hankered towards the farther shore. The stern boatman permits one group to board, and now another, but the rest he denies passage, driving them back away from the sandy banks. Amazed and then moved by all this press and pleading, Aeneas asks his guide, "What does it mean, O Sibyl, this push to the riverbank? What do these souls desire? What decides that one group is held back, another road across the muddy waters?" Son of Anchises, the venerable one replied, "O true-born son of heaven, what you see here are the standing pools of Cocytus and the Stygian Mar. These are the names invoked when gods swear oaths they will never dare to break. That crowd in front of you died but were left unburied, with no help or hope. The ferryman is Charon. The ones on board his craft are the buried. Not until bones have found a last resting place will shades be let across these gurgling currents, their doom instead to wander and haunt about the banks for 100 years. Then, and only then, are they again allowed to approach the brink and waters that they long for." Aeneas stopped there and stood lost in thought, comprehending pity in his heart at their misfortune. Then caught sight of Leucaspis and Orontes, good captain of the Lycian fleet, downcast men, denied the rights of the dead on their journey out from Troy. A southern gale struck ship and crew in heavy seas, and both were swept away, overwhelmed in the turmoil. And now there appears his helmsman, Palinurus, who not long since had pitched and tumbled off the stern into open sea as he held course from Africa, eyes fixed upon the stars, to whom Aeneas, once he recognized his sad form in the congregating dark, spoke first. "Which god snatched you from us, Palinurus, and drowned you in the deep? Tell, oh tell what happened." "Never until now did Apollo's oracle prove false, but this time he deceived me. You would survive the waves, he prophesied, and land safe on the shore of Italia. Is this how he keeps his word?" But Palinurus answered, "My captain, son of Anchises, the god Apollo's oracle did not play you false, nor did any god plunge me into the waves. What happened was this. The steering oar I held and was in charge of snapped in a sudden gale, and as I fell, I dragged it down with me. But I swear by ocean, the fear I had for myself then was as nothing to the fear I had for your ship. Stripped of her tackle, her steersman overboard, would she not wallow and founder in those mountainous seas? For 3 nights, through horizonless surge, a south wind hurled me and burned me. The 4th day at dawn, I rose on a swell and got my first glimpse of Italia. Little by little then I was making headway, slugging towards land in my waterlogged clothes, getting a grip on the razorback ridges, when savage locals appeared with drawn swords, a pack who, for wanting of knowing, assumed that I be rich pickings. Now surf keeps me dangled, the shore winds lull me and roll me. You, therefore, you, the unbowed, the unbroken, I implore, by the cheerful light of the sky and its breezes, by your father and your hopes as the father of Iülus, Get me away from this place. Put an end to my woes. Either scatter the handful of earth on my corpse, which you easily can once you're back in the harbour of Thalia, or else, if there be a way, if your goddess mother can direct you to one, for I believe you are going to enjoy the favour of heaven, prepared as you are to face these vast waterways and set sail on the Stygian marsh. Reach out your hand to one who is suffering. Take me with you over the waves, so that in death at the least I shall find a calm haven. That was his plea to Aeneas, and this was the answer he got from the Sibyl. What madness is this, Palinurus? You who aren't even buried, what makes you think you can look on the waters of Styx, or the Furies' grim river? You have not been called to the bank. Banish the thought that praying can never affect the edicts of the gods. Your plight is a hard one, but hear and remember my words. They should be a comfort. What will happen is this. Your bones will be reverenced. The sky will reveal signs and portents. In cities, on every side, populations will know to build you a tomb and observe solemn custom with offerings year after year, and the place for all time will bear the name Palinurus. These words lifted his heart and raised for a moment his spirits. The thought of the land in his name makes him happy. So now they resumed their journey and kept going until they were near the river, moving through silent woodland towards the bank, when Charon from his boat out in the water spied them and began to remonstrate on the attack before they even spoke. You, whoever you are, approaching our river under arms, stop there, not one step farther, and say what brings you. This is the country of the shades, of heavy-lidded night and sleep. It is a thing forbidden to load the Stygian ferry with living bodies. I rue the day I carried Hercules and Theseus and Pirithous, sons of gods as they were, strong men, invincibles. Hercules arrived to chain up and restrain the Hellmouth watchdog, to steal him from the very throne of the king, and did carry the panicked beast away. The others tried to abduct the queen from Pluto's bed, to which the soothsaying priestess made reply, nothing like this is being plotted here. These arms and weapons present you with no threat, so be calm. Let the monster cave dog howl his howl forever, and keep on terrifying bloodless shades. Proserpina be her pure self behind her uncle's doors. Aeneas of Troy, renowned for his right life and warrior prowess, descends among the shades, down to death's deepest regions, to see his father. If the sight of such devotedness won't move you, you nevertheless must recognize this bow. And she shows the bow concealed by her cloak. Charon quietens then. His bad temper subsides. He says no more. It's long since he beheld the holy proffer of that faithful branch. He turns his dark barge round and steers for the shore. Other souls ensconced on the long thwarts, he hurries off up gangways. Then at once hands mighty Aeneas down into the vessel. Under that weight the boat's plied timbers groan, and thick marsh water oozes through the links. But in the end, it is a safe crossing, and he lands soldier and soothsayer on slithery mud, knee-deep in green sedge. Here Cerberus keeps watch, growling from 3 gullets, his brute bulk couched in the cave, facing down all comers. But the Sibyl, seeing snake hackles bristle on his neck, flings him a dumpling of soporific honey and heavily drugged grain. The ravenous triple maw yawns open, snaffles the sop it has been thrown, until the next thing the enormous flanks go slack, and the inert form slumps to the cave floor. Thus, with the watchdog sunk in a deep sleep, Aeneas gains entry and is quick to put behind him the bank of that river none comes back across. The sound of crying fills the air, the high wails and weeping of infant souls, little ones denied their share of sweet life, torn from the breast on life's very doorstep. A dark day bore them off and sank them in untimely death. Next to them are those condemned to death on false charges, although here they are assigned their proper verdicts by a rightly chosen jury. Minos, the judge, presides and shakes the urn, convenes a panel of the silent dead, seeking to establish men's characters and crimes. Farther on, in the dwelling place of those unhappy spirits who died by their own hand, simply driven by life to a fierce rejection of the light. How they long now for the open air above. How willingly they would endure the lot of exhausted workers and the hard-wrought poor. But their way is barred by the laws of gods. The waste and desolate marsh water laps around. River Styx with its 9 loops binds and bounds them. Not far from here, the fields called the Fields of Mourning stretch out in all directions. On these plains, hidden on shadowy paths, secluded and embowered in myrtle groves, are those who suffered hard and cruel decline in thrall to an unremitting love. Their griefs do not relent, not even in death. Here Aeneas saw, among other lovers, Phaedra and Procrus and sad Euryphile, pointing to the wounds dealt by her callous son. Evadne too and Pasiphae, and moving in step with them, Laodamia and Cineos, who in her time had known life as a man, though fate had now restored the figure of the woman she once was. Along with these, still nursing her raw wound, Dido of Carthage strayed in the great forest. As soon as the Trojan came close and made out her dimly wavering form among the shadows, he was like one who sees or imagines he has seen a new moon rising up among the clouds on the first day of the month. There and then he wept and spoke these loving, tender words. Unhappy Dido, so the news I got was true, that you had left the world and taken a sword and bade your last farewell. Was I to blame for your death? I swear by the stars, by the powers above, and by any truth there may be under earth, I embarked from your shore, my queen, unwillingly. Orders from the gods which compel me now to travel among shades in this mouldering world, this bottomless pit of night, dictated obedience then as well. How could I believe my going would devastate you with such grief? Stay a moment, don't slip out of our sight. Is there someone you are trying to avoid? These words I'm saying to you are the last fate will permit me ever. Pleading like this, tears welling up inside him, Aeneas tried to placate her fiery spirit and soften her fierce gaze. But she, averting her face, her eyes fixed steadily on the ground, turned and showed no sign of having heard, no more than if her features had been carved in flint or Parian marble. At length she swept away and fled implacable into the dappling shadows of the grove, where Sychaeus, her husband in another earlier time, feels for her pain and reciprocates the love she bears him still, while Aeneas, no less stricken by the injustice of her fate, gazes into the distance after her, gazes through tears and pities her as she goes. Then he braces himself for the journey still to come, and soon they arrive in the farthest outlying fields, the hosting grounds of those renowned in war. In one place Tydeus meets him, in another Parthenopaeus, glorious in arms, and the bloodless shade of Adrastus. Elsewhere the Trojan chieftains who fell in battle, much mourned in the world above, and now he also moaned to see them, thronging in such numbers, Glaucus, Medon, and Pharsilochus, Antenor's 3 sons, Polyboetes, the priest of Ceres, and Idaeus, still the chariot driver, still dressed in his armour. From right and left, souls crowd and jostle close, eager for more than just a look at him. They want his company, the joy of keeping in step, talking, learning why he has come. But the Greek captains and the gleaming cohorts, once led by Agamemnon, cowered in panic when they saw Aeneas advance in dazzling armour through the gloom. Some turned to flee as they had once to the ships. Some raised a spectral cry that came to nothing, dying away as it left their gaping mouths. And here Aeneas caught sight, Priam's son, Deiphobus, mutilated in every part, his face in shreds, his face in his 2 hands, ears torn from his head, and his nostrils, a low, dishonourable wound this, his nostrils cut away, unrecognisable almost as he shivered and shrank into himself to hide the cruel laceration. Aeneas, in a voice well known to him, spoke first resolutely. Deiphobus, mightiest in the field, offspring of Teucer's ancient line, who was there capable of such mutilation? Who let themselves run so ruthlessly amok? The story I heard was this. On the last night in Troy, you waded in Greek blood till you fell exhausted, fell like a dead man on a heap of their slobbered corpses. That is why I raised an empty tomb for you at Rhoetum, on the shore, and with my 3 loud cries invoked your spirit. Your name now and your arms hallow that spot, but not you in the flesh, my friend, whom I could neither see as I embarked, nor bury in home ground. Priam's son replied, and you, my friend, you left no thing undone. You paid the right attention to Deiphobus, dead man and shade. It was my destiny, and the criminal widowing schemes of my lady of Sparta wrecked and ruined me. What you see are the love bites she left me in remembrance of that last night, of all our city's nights, the most jubilant and most deluded. But this you know too well already, for how could you forget? When the horse that was our fate came at a leap onto the heights of Troy, big in the belly with armed men, she was to the fore, involved in the dance, contriving to lead our women in the loud frenzy of the bacchanal. Up she went to our citadel, in her hand a torch conspicuously ablaze, signalling to the Greeks. And me then, me in my God-cursed marriage bed, lying dead beat, far gone, giving into sleep, sweet, welcoming, drowsy sleep, serene almost as death. Meanwhile, my paragon of a bride had cleared the house of every weapon and even stolen the sword from underneath my head. And now she opened doors and called for Menelaus to come in, hoping, no doubt, that this grand favour to her lover boy would blot out memories of old betrayals. But why say more? I broke into the bedroom, Ulysses with them, insidious and malignant. Oh, God's is my plea, for vengeance is a just one. Gods, retaliate, strike the Greeks with all due punishment. But you, what of you? It's time I heard your story. What turn of events has brought you here alive? Do you come as a survivor, tempest-tossed, or at the gods' behest? What destiny hounds you down to these sunless, poor abodes, this land of troubles? Dawn in her rose-flushed chariot had taken her an airy drive up half the sky as they talked together, and in all likelihood they would have talked on for whatever time had been allotted, but that the Sibyl at Aeneas' side reproved him in a few brief words. Night, Aeneas, has begun to fall. We are wasting time lamenting. This is the fork of the road. Here it divides to the right, where it runs beneath the walls of mighty Pluto's fortress. That one we take to Elysium. The one to the left sends evildoers to punishment in merciless Tartarus. Deiphobus then replied, Do not, high priestess, be angry. I will be gone, will take my place with the rest, yield once more to the dart. But you, the glory of Troy, go you to a happier fate. He had said his say, and as he spoke, turned on his heel. Aeneas suddenly looks back and sees a broad-based fortress under a cliff to the left, set behind 3 wings of wall, encircled by a hurtling torrent, a surge, a rush of flame, rock tumbling and thunder flowing Phlegethon, the fiery bourne of Tartarus. A gate rears up in front, flanked by pillars of solid adamant, so massive no human force, not even the sky god's squadrons, could dislodge them. There too stands an iron tower, and from its top, Tisiphone the Fury oversees the entrance day and night, unsleeping and on guard, her bloody dress hitched up. Sounds of groaning could be heard inside, the savage application of the lash, the fling and scringe and drag of iron chains. Aeneas stopped short, petrified, taking in the turmoil and the shouting, and asked the Sibyl, what wrongdoing is being dealt with here? What punishments afflict the wrongdoers? What is this wailing high upon the wind? And the prophetess answered him, famed chieftain of the Trojans, no, it is forbidden for the pure in spirit to set foot on the God-cursed threshold. And yet, when Hecate gave me charge of Avernus' woods, she took me through this whole place and explained the punishments God imposed. Radamanthus of Knossos rules here, unforgiving, castigating, hearing admissions of guilt, and exacting confession from those self-deceiving souls who thought to hide wrongs done in the world above and left them unatoned for until too late. Vengeful Tisiphone keeps bearing down a whiplash lapped and lithe in her right hand, in her left a flail of writhing snakes, scourging the guilty, summoning her ferocious clack of sisters. Next comes a grinding scrunch and screech of hinges as the dread doors open, and you see what waits inside, the shape and threat of the guard who haunts the threshold. Further in, and more ruthless still, the Hydra lurks, monstrous, with her 50 gaping mouth holes and black bullets. And beyond, the sheer plunge of Tartarus down to the depths, to darkness, a drop twice as far beneath the earth as Olympus appears to soar above it. In the bottom of the pit, in the very lowest sump, fell by Jove's thunderbolt, Earth's ancient sons, the Titans, writhe, abased. Here I saw too the sons of Aloeus, giant twins who attempted to grapple with high heaven and depose the father of the skies. Salmoneus I too saw, paying dear for having played at being Jupiter, wielding fire and imitating the thunders of Olympus. He rode in triumph through the Greek nations and his own city in Elis, drawn by 4 horses and flourishing a torch, assuming to himself the honor due to gods. It was madness to think that the batter of bronze and the clatter of horses' hooves could mimic Jupiter's absolute thunder and his scowling storms. But the all-powerful Father, no fake lightning for him, from torches or smoky guttering pine brands, hurling his bright bolt from behind a cloud murk, and blasted Salmoneus headlong down in an overwhelming whirlwind. There as well you'd see Tityos, foster son of Earth, the mother of all. Tityos, his body stretching out over 9 whole acres, while a huge, horrendous vulture puddles forever with a hooped beak in his liver and entrails, teeming with raw ale. It burrows deep below the breastbone, feeding and foraging without respite, but the gnawed-at gut and gut strings keep renewing. And the Lapiths, Ixion and Parathos, should I mention them? Eternally menaced by a looming boulder, black and eternally about to fall. Golden headrests gleam on their high banquet couches. A sumptuous royal feast is spread to tempt them, but nearby the arch fury occupies her place, warding off hands that long to reach out to the meal, ever ready to spring with her lifted torch and terrifying yells. Also incarcerated those who for a lifetime hated a brother, abused a parent, or ruined the good name of a client. Those who gloated on wealth they'd secretly amassed and hoarded and failed to share with kith and kin. They comprised the biggest crowd. Those killed as adulterers, those who broke oaths of loyalty to masters in violent rebellions, all were confined there, awaiting punishment. What that punishment would be, what fault or fate entailed it, do not seek to know. Some roll a massive boulder or hang spread-eagle tied to the spokes of wheels. Theseus, unlucky soul, sits unmoving and will sit like that forever, while Phlegias, most stricken of all, cautions all, a constant proof of what his voice proclaims loudly through the darkness. Take warning by me, learn to do right, learn not to scorn the gods. Here too was one who sold his country's freedom leaving her enthralled to her tyrant lord. Here, one who would fix laws for a price, and for a price unfixed. Here, another who forced a daughter in her bed and into an abominable marriage. All dared to commit great wrong and were fit for what they dared. If I had 100